Chapter 4 Difficulties and Hurdles of Marriage. Whenever it is said to a youth, "Marry," he instantly presents the problems, difficulties, and hurdles of marriage. And the first difficulty that he discusses is the economical and financial matters. He then counts the other problems one by one. It is a fact that there are really lots of difficulties on the way to marriage, which cannot be neglected. In this chapter, by the will of Allah, we shall consider these difficulties, impediments, and obstacles, and contemplate the solutions to them. Difficulties, real or artificial. Alas, our society still remains a far distance from the true and pure Mohammedan Islam. Still its face is hidden behind the curtain of many problems, and the curtains of ignorance, false habits and customs, selfishness, polytheism, and egoism have hindered the radiant sun of Islam, depriving society of its life-giving glare. Had Islam been the standard and criterion in marriage and spouse choosing, most or all of these difficulties would not have existed. But which Islam? According to Imam Khomeini, pure Mohammedan Islam, not American Islam. Pure Islam is the same as the Prophet, peace be upon him, originated. Have we not read and heard about the glorious Prophet, peace be upon him, that he executed all the stages of marriage, i.e., engagement, fixation of dowry, and recitation of marriage service, in the span of a few minutes, and handed the husband and wife to each other and sent them to their home? These are not myths, not even miracles. Still, the pure Mohammedan Islam is the same and has the same strength and quality. But it is we who are not pure Muslims. All our shortcomings are due to our Muslimhood, not to Islam. What to do now? In any case, difficulties and hindrances do exist, and their solutions and remedies must be found. These remedies and solutions are of two kinds. One is long-term and the other is short-term. The long-term ones are mostly related to the intelligentsia, the rulers, reformers, and the trainers of the nation and society, who should seek solutions for the entire society and its welfare. And the short-term ones are mostly connected to the youth and their parents themselves, who must seek the immediate solution as to what must be done in these circumstances and conditions. At the moment, we are not going to talk about the long-term solutions. They may be discussed independently at another time. Our main discussion pertains to the short-term planning, i.e., what might be done right now. So now we take up the real and actual difficulties. First difficulty: economic and monetary difficulty. The major part of this difficulty is formed from the intricacies created by society, which is not the actual difficulty of marriage. Had our life been based upon the foundations of Islam and human nature, these external difficulties would not have existed, or would have been extremely minimized, and there would have been no youth who could not marry due to such things. Anyway, these things presently exist and our society has brought them into being, and a solution must be sought for them. Solutions. Allah and the leaders of Islam have given a lot of good news and hope in this regard, which can be very hopeful and trusting supports for the youth. It is obligatory and binding upon us to have complete satisfaction about these promises and news. Their promises and commitments are true. There could be no more hope-giving the enthusiasm creating thing than this support for the youth who intend to marry but find the economical difficulties a hurdle and hindrance on their way. Faith in this support brings about a great courage and valor in a man. Now we consider a few of those. Allah promises, "In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. And marry those among you who are single, and those who are fit among your male slaves and your female slaves. If they are needy, Allah will make them free from want out of His grace, and Allah is ample, giving, knowing." Chapter 24, verse 32. This is a clear, distinct, and conspicuous promise of Allah, and which promise can be more trusting than Allah's? Young brother and sister, be satisfied and absolutely sure about this promise of Allah. Then you will see the definite and bright result of it, insha'Allah, God willing. I have personally seen and observed and touched this in many cases among my friends and acquaintances, who did not have a house or wealth at the time of their marriage, but later on became house owners and wealthy. Very rarely have I seen people possessing a house and material sources before marriage. I know only 2 of these cases where some people were provided with a house and money before marriage, but interestingly they too were confronted with a cold, spiritless and purposeless life due to them putting off and delaying marriage for the procurement of house and money, since they wasted the spring of marriage, that is, the valuable period of youth, till the autumn of life appeared. The good news given by the leaders of Islam, the Prophet, peace be upon him, who is the trustee of Allah's mysteries and secrets, spoke about Allah's help to the youth as follows: "Give spouse to your single ones, because Allah makes their morality better, improves it under the shadow of marriage, and expands their sustenance and increases their generosity, human values." Yet again he says, "The one who forsakes and drops marriage for fear of poverty and adversity, indeed, he has a bad negative opinion and thought about Allah. Verily, Allah said, if they are poor, Allah will turn them needless by His grace." Again, that magnanimous one says to the youth, "Get spouses, as that increases your sustenance." Sustenance is with wives and family. A beautiful example. A young man who was extremely poor and penniless came into the presence of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and complained to him about his poverty and adversity, and requested his guidance, saying, "O Prophet of Allah, what must I do to get out of this condition of extreme poverty and apprehension?" The Prophet said, "Do marry." The young man was surprised and said to himself, "How can I, who do not have enough means to run my own life's expenses, marry and shoulder the responsibility and expenses of wife and myself together?" However, since he was completely sure about the correctness of the saying of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and believed in its truth, did get married, and his life gradually and economically improved, he came out of the state of poverty and misery. Deep attention to this good news and true promise projects sureness about Allah's aid and help in the human heart, so that one marries and is not afraid of the difficulties, hardships, and hindrances. And it is taken for granted that when a youth marries for the pleasure of Allah, implementation of His command and remaining safe and secure from the corruptions and spiritual and physical ailments, and also for the sake of progress, completion, and prosperity, Allah's beneficence and kindness would overwhelm him, and His help would come to make him reach his sacred aim. New horizons. After marriage, new horizons and vistas open up before one, which did not exist before, since the individual, as a result of marriage, feels more responsibility and sees oneself responsible to manage the new life, to procure the livelihood and save the family's honor. Thereby, he utilizes all his potential capabilities and hidden talents. Fresh spring sprouts up from his interior. Talents that he was unaware of rises up, and premarital sleeping energies gush out. He finds a new and energetic personality inside himself. His dependence and trust upon Allah increases, and all of a sudden, new broad horizons open up and are made apparent before his intellect, mind, and soul. On the other side, under the shadow of marriage and resting beside a kind, intimate, and sympathetic life partner, all the problems, pressures, agonies of single life, loneliness, feelings of scornfulness, and shortcomings are forgotten. And as a consequence, the human soul blossoms, and the keenness and eagerness towards progress and completion blooms in him. And man flies up towards the height of completion and prosperity. What a large number of people have been seen who, after marrying a suitable spouse, have found for themselves new personalities, become new persons, and their journey towards all ends picked up acceleration and speed. The progress and development of new horizons contain and consists of economic affairs as well, and the youth explores new ways and means of livelihood and procuring income. He becomes brave and dauntless in his economical matters, expansion of his job and business. As a result, his income is boosted and increases by these activities. Economical problems and hardships are removed one by one. Every success has many other successes following it, and every new victory brings other victories. Job facilities and allowances. In a lot of organizations, job institutions, and offices, married employees are given such facilities, allowances, and benefits, which are not given to the unmarried. For example, when teachers get married, they are provided with plots, loans, and other benefits and allowances that have a great effect upon the betterment of their economical conditions. Just as it has been previously stated, 90% of my friends and acquaintances became house owners and wealthy after being married. Most of them were teachers and preceptors who, when married even after their simple engagement, acquired access to pieces of land and loans, constructed houses, and even their marriage expenses were met by the same money. Of course, we must be attentive to the fact that in all these cases, Allah's help is effective. Attaining status and more reverence. In society, married people are usually more respected and given higher status than single ones. The banks and financial institutions that provide loans, and the businessmen and institutions providing commodities and installments, trust and value married people more. This trust and economical honor has its effect upon removing the financial hardships of life and improving its elegance and splendor. Special marriage loans. Special funds and bank loans for this essential matter must be established everywhere. This seems to be one of the long-term solutions we have decided not to discuss. We at present do not have any concern with the long-term ones, but the youth themselves and the residents of each street can perform it, and the mosques are suitable places for this work. It may not necessarily be a large one. It can be a small unit in each street and area, and can announce that everyone can bring in any amount of money and give it as a loan for marriage expenditures and expenses for Allah's pleasure. Unfortunately, some of the loan funds which at the beginning were meant for meeting the needs of needy people have now turned into business shops. Anyone who has more money or works more with the fund gets more loans. Glory be to the Creator. Is this the meaning of a loan? We are not concerned with such funds, of course. There are some funds concordant with their preliminary aims and objectives, and young men can, by trusting in Allah and with their high morale, courage, fortitude, and the help of sincere and pious men, raise and establish special marriage funds. Decreasing the ceremonies and additional expenses. Most of the ceremonies regarding marriage are against Islam, reason, and human nature. We must again regret that our society has become so immersed in habits, rites, and customs of ignorance. A lot has been said and is being said over this topic. Reformers admonish, writers write, the religious scholars and clergymen describe the traditions and the mode of life and morale of the infallible. But alas, it has a little effect upon hardened hearts, which are contaminated with the customs of ignorance. Why have we, who claim piety and culture, flung ourselves far from piety and civilization and the lofty Islamic culture? Why do we bind ourselves by such chains of imprisonment? Why is our society moving fast towards decline, retrogradation, and retrogression, and the fall of moral values? Why is it that after the revolution, it was expected that the mean rites of ignorance would go, but actually we see them on the increase? This is most certainly not the fault of the revolution, it is ours. The dower sums and wedding gifts are going up each day. Dowries are increasing. The expenses and expenditures are swelling. Ceremonies are boasting up in number. Emulation and rivalry is increasing, and avarice and jealousy is intensifying. O Allah, what has gone wrong with us? O dear fathers and mothers, be mindful not to sacrifice your children upon your greed and avarice. Be mindful not to destroy their prosperity. Do you know that if you hinder the marriage of your son with a suitable spouse, its harm and loss will reach you before and more than everybody else? Take lesson from all the corruption that has taken place due to delays in marriage for the sake of ceremonies and rites. If your daughter becomes corrupt, you will lose your honor, which will make you bow down your head. If you receive the news that your daughter has made friends with indecent boys, and God forbid she has become immodest and immoral, then this stain will remain upon your face forever. If God forbid, your son becomes immoral, characterless, and corrupt, and involves in feeding his eyes with prohibited sights, sexual deviation, indulges in dirty sexual activities, this would bring a black spot of eternal disgrace to you. If your son or daughter is confronted with depression, apprehension, or physical and spiritual disease, due to sexual strains, solitude and loneliness, or masturbation and sexual deviations, their loss, apprehension, and grief will also be shared by you. Why have we become negligent and heedless to the facts? Did Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, not say, "The daughter who is not married in time is like a fruit that is not plucked in time and becomes rotten and stale"? Did Islam not reveal, if the marriage of the son is delayed due to the parents and he is deviated with sin, that sin will be shared by the father and the mother as well? Even if we are not Muslims, why must we not take lesson from the experiences of society? O dear father and mother, O sisters and brothers, do for sure that most difficulties are our own creations, and we have ourselves loaded these problems and nuisances upon ourselves. When the parents and even the boys and girls are talked to and guided about decreasing and diminishing the expenditures and ceremonies, and an ample number of arguments are given in this connection, they reply, "All that you say is correct, but we have honor and prestige. It would be stepping down from the height of honor if we do not take such and such an amount of dower sum. Have simple ceremonies. The girl's dowry may not contain a color TV, furniture, freezer, and carpet. Certain types of jewelry may not be there, and the right milk price may not be received. We are honorable, and must remain honorable and respectable, and rise our head with honor among both families." The answer is our honor and reverence more than that of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Imam Ali, and Fatima, peace be upon her? If holding simple marriage ceremonies, short of rites, is a disgrace and causes dishonor, then how come these great personalities did that? All of us know that they were the most honorable of humanity in the whole of the universe, and no one reaches their status in connection with honor, respect, nobility, and position. Nonetheless, all of us are aware that the marriage of Hazrat Zahra, peace be upon her, and Hazrat Ali, peace be upon him, was held in the simplest form, and that all the expenditure of the dowry and household effects and marriage expenses were procured from the sale of Hazrat Ali's armored jacket. The total expenses totally neared $60. Yes, it is true that we do not have the strength to lead a life similar to those magnanimous ones, but at least we must resemble them, and our lifestyle should have some resemblance with theirs. Otherwise, what does following and taking example mean if we claim to be their followers, but our life, conduct, and morality does not have any resemblance with theirs? Then the claim would be a lie, and it is a form of hypocrisy. And likewise, it is true that the form and pattern of life has changed, and the standards of living have gone up, and the age has changed. But the Islamic and human standards and values have definitely not changed at all, and will never change. That is to say, not spending extravagantly, simplicity in life, not having rivalry, and the invalidity of fables and ceremonies shall always stand. Let the society go to any height of standards. All that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, made lawful shall be lawful to the resurrection day, and all that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, declared unlawful and illegal shall remain so to the resurrection day. Regretfully, These false ceremonies and wrong rites are a social and cultural disease which has affected all of us, and we all are responsible for it. O fathers, mothers, sisters, and brothers, we must believe for sure that the rites and ceremonies are like the spider's webs. The more they grow, the more we would become entangled in them, to the extent that they suffocate, choke, and destroy us. The lesser their number, the more comfortable and at ease would man be. A beautiful specimen of simple living. Once, in the era of Salman and rule of Madian, a flood came and the water gushed into people's house. So they rushed to the mountains and the height to seek shelter and refuge. These, who had more luggage to carry, were faced with a lot of trouble in taking them up the height, so that a few even lost their lives carrying their household effects. Hazrat Salman's personal effects were small, including a volume of Quran, a sword, a water pot, and a goat skin which was his carpet. He took them and climbed up the hiss without any difficulty. Then he said, "Such is the way that those who are light gain salvation, and those with a heavy load of sin are annihilated and perish." For the sake of God, what is the difference if you own a rug instead of a precious and expensive carpet? What difference would it make if your house does not have decorations? What stops us from having a simple meal instead of various costly foods? If honor is in these formalities, then these personalities are artificial, unimpressive, and worthless. Compare the simple mud house of Imam Ali, who is the chief of the believers and leader of all human beings, a universal personality, and Fatima, the chief of the free and honorable women of human history. A house where Imam Hassan, peace be upon him, Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, and Zainab Kubra, peace be upon her, were brought up to the green palace of Muawiyah, Allah's curse be upon him. Which one do you love more? And compare the various and numerous palaces of the Shah of Iran, Allah's curse be upon him, with the simple small rented house of Imam Khomeini. May Allah bless him. Which one is dearer, worthier, and more sublime in your view? Refer to your souls and address them. Economic difficulties are decreasing the formalities and ceremonies, rites, and additional expenditures. O Allah, help the youth in this important matter.